Photo Harry Howe, Getty Tom Herman has a tough decision ahead of him. He may have made it already, saying Monday at his weekly press conference that Shane Buechele will start in Texas's next game against Iowa State on September the 28th, if he is 100% and having great practices, but that he wouldn't tell you Shane will start the Iowa State game, when we're 10 days away. Despite starting every game of his freshman season last year, Herman has never completely committed to Buechele as the starting quarterback, although he's mostly seemed to lean towards having him at the top of the depth chart, which listed Buechele or Ehlinger as the current starter Monday. Taking a deeper look at the numbers both quarterbacks have put up so far this year reveals reasons to start or sit either one. Buechele started the opener against Maryland, a 51-41 loss, before giving way to Ehlinger due to the shoulder injury that has kept him out of the last 2 games. Texas gets a bye week before its Big 12 opener in 2 weeks, giving Buechele extra time to recover. Long completions: Buechele completed 34 of 52 passes for 375 yards and 2 touchdowns with an interception, running for 21 yards and a third score against the Terrapins. He completed 16 passes of 40 or more yards last year, tied for the 10th most in the country, and 1 fewer than Patrick Mahomes, despite throwing the ball 200 fewer times. But Buechele did not connect on a play that long once in 52 throws against Maryland. Ehlinger, on the other hand, already has 2 such completions under his belt. Of his 36 completions so far this year, 22 have been for at least 10 yards, 61.1%, and 9 have been for at least 20 yards, 25.0%. Those are both better marks than Buechele's, as 17 of his 34 completions have gone for 10 or more yards, 50.0%, and just 4 for at least 20 yards, 11.8%. The Colin Johnson effect: both have benefited from the start Colin Johnson has gotten off to this season. Johnson is one of only 2 players in the nation currently averaging at least 20 yards per catch with at least 15 receptions this year, the other being Ole Miss's A.J. Brown. His 366 receiving yards are the 13th most in the country, and more than twice as many as any of his teammates. When throwing to Johnson last week, Ehlinger was 7 of 10 for 191 yards, while going just 14 of 30 for 107 yards throwing to everyone else. Johnson also had a great showing in the only contest Buechele has played in this year, catching 7 of 11 targets for 125 yards. Throwing to everyone else, Buechele completed 27 of 41 passes for 250 yards. For the entire season, Ehlinger has averaged 13.4 yards per throw at Johnson, and 5.7 yards per attempt throwing to anyone else. That gap closes a little bit for Buechele, although it is still sizable. Hess averaged 11.4 yards per pass when throwing Johnson's way and 6.1 yards per pass throwing to anyone else. Turnovers: while Ehlinger has been more explosive as a passer this year, he turned the ball over 4 times against the Trojans last week, 2 interceptions and 2 lost fumbles, including the one near the goal line in the second overtime. Buechele has been picked off just once this year, his lone turnover of the year in 67 combined plays, 52 passes, 15 rushes. That's a mere 1.5% turnover rate, compared to Ehlinger's 4.3% turnover rate, although some of that disparity could, of course, be explained by Ehlinger facing possibly the best defense Texas will see all year on the road last weekend. Despite the extra interception, Ehlinger has racked up more pass EPA expected points added, with 18.76 to Buechele's 17.02. Buechele, however, has averaged more EPA per pass, with his 0.33 mark besting Ehlinger's 0.28. While both are relatively mobile, Ehlinger has posed more of a running threat, but, in large part, because of the pair of lost fumbles last week, has just 5.42 rush EPA this year, worse than Buechele's 3.15 rush EPA. Without those two fumbles, Ehlinger would have 1.05 rush EPA. Safe and efficient versus explosive and risky. Buechele has been more accurate, completing 65.4% of his passes, while Ehlinger has connected on 53.7% of his throws. But Ehlinger has been more explosive, averaging 14.4 yards per completion, with Buechele averaging 11.0 yards per completion. What could prove to be the difference is the fact that buechele has done a better job of protecting the ball so far this year, although all of Ehlinger's turnovers were committed against an extremely talented and fast USC defense. Not only that, but while Buechele hasn't connected on as many long passes as Ehlinger through 3 games this season, he proved that he has that ability last year. If Herman believes he can continue to avoid turnovers and get back to his explosive ways from 2016, which isn't far-fetched considering that he'll have Colin Johnson at his disposal, it makes sense to be leaning towards starting Buechele if he's healthy.